this fight is a new kind of battle, slightly new, but it's Kaido. It's a 1v4 now, guys. Yeah, I'm gonna have way more fights like this. This is just the first one. I decided to make this the first one. Kaido versus Kid, Law, Yamato, and Zoro. All four of them versus Kaido. All of them with their Wano versions, right? The ones that were in Wano Onigashima that day. Basically, the scenario here is, Luffy's fighting against Big Mom, right? So all those fucking players are fighting against Kaido on the rooftop after the 9 Skyward get their ass whooped. And he's there by himself, no help from Big Mom. He's, big man up there by himself. And they're there to, square off against him. Going into this, that 3 of them have devil fruits, 3 of them are conquerors. 2 of them have, actually, all 3 of them have devil fruit awakening. One of them is a strategist, that to be Law. The conquerors are Kid, Zoro, and Yamato. Devil fruit users, Kid, Zoro. Not Zoro, Law. Kid, Law, and Yamato are the devil fruit users. They have different combinations of ways they can go about attacking them. Essentially, I, know that Law is the brains of this operation. The people who are executing damage to Kaido, like more the damage, that is Zoro and Yamato. They have advanced Conqueror's Haki. Zoro is a little bit, inexperienced compared to Yamato, but his is still potent enough to do damage to him. We ain't, because you gotta remember, y'all, this is not what happened. So what happened in the original story? Those 5 came up there and they were fighting against Big Mom and Kaido, not just Kaido. And what's the saying about Kaido? He fights people one-on-one, he's probably gonna win. But this is a 4v1. And these people ain't weak like the 9 Scavengers. Oh, there you go. And these guys are, decent. They ain't quite like the top tier, but they're like low top tiers, if you know what I mean. Because these people have Conqueror's Haki. And then Law, he don't have Conqueror's Haki, but he has mastery over his devil fruit. And he'll be able to shift people around and be like, now hit your attack off at this specific spot at this specific point. Yamato and Zoro, and then, have Kid, probably backed off somewhere, I'll have you, go up there and, hit off your little fucking damn punk, the railgun, right? He's the strategist. Zoro and Yamato are going to be dealing damage to them internally with their, attacks. Now, Law can also deal damage internally with his attacks, with his Karun, right? He just goes in there and, coats his blade in his, devil fruit, right? And he can deal damage internally. External fighters are basically, Kid's going to be doing external damage to him. But it's going to take a lot of, strategies and, not just one, time when they combine their attacks, but, I'd say, 5 times hitting Kaido with the combined attacks, advanced Conqueror's Haki from Zoro and Yamato, Zoro and Law doing their thing, or Zoro or Kid and Law doing their thing, and they could do, Zoro and Law doing some shit together. He's floating these people around. Remember, he has his space where he can use shambles. He can move these people around. Kid's kind of like a guy who's going to be guarding him, I believe, in this situation. Because Zoro and Yamato are the ones who are really, they're the ones who are really doing damage to him. But even so, I'm like, this is overall. So, you're going to have group. Does a group win this category, or does Kaido win this category overall during the fight? And then I'll let you know who wins the fight. So, Kaido wins overall during the match in strength. Physical attacks, lifting and striking power goes to Kaido. these people, right, won't be able to always get their attacks off. Kaido, he's an experienced fighter. They won't be able to get their first at the beginning of the fight. They won't be able to get their attacks off like that. You know, they'll be fighting more individually at first. Then Law will be like, "Hey guys, this shit ain't working. We're gonna have to, coordinate shit better." They'll listen to him because they obviously see that them doing shit willy nilly at their own, whatever, isn't doing as well as they thought. Speed though, I'm giving it to the group because again, Law has this shambles technique. He can use that to move these people around. You know, if he knows that they're gonna get hit, he's like, okay, I'll switch him with a rock. He's safe now. She's safe now. I give the speed to the group. Durability, I'm giving it to Kaido. Like this guy's gonna need like a you know 4 or 5 combined attacks from these guys will definitely put Kaido out, I think. But it's gonna take 4 or 5 combined attacks. This man is not weak. Durability goes to Kaido. The group has the endurance though. I believe the group has the endurance because Law doing his thing with his dough fruit, right? It's multifaceted. He can move people around. He can attack himself. They'll think, he'll have Kaido thinking, oh, he's just a guy that's moving these people around. He has Kid, blocking for him, as a guardian, keeping him safe. But then Law, moves in and attacks him himself. He's doing shit like that. You know, they have the ability to, fight long against Kaido. Now, Kaido, he has the ability to fight long too, but I ultimately think these 4 can, keep their, endurance well. They're gonna get hurt. They're gonna get, smashed by Kaido. Each of them are. Intelligence, I'm giving it to the group. I see the beginning of this battle being, kind of chaotic, but then Law is able to bring them together and be like, hey, we're gonna have to, hit off combined attacks, at certain times in this battle. Mainly Yamato and Zoro because they're the ones that conquer Saki. Him and Kid will go and attack, Kaido. However, Kid's gonna be blocking for him as he can move Zoro and Yamato around so they don't get hurt as much. And then moving himself in every once in a while to do internal damage to Kaido. It's gonna be tough, but they can figure something out with the mind of Law. He's not stupid. Experience, that goes to Kaido. He's been running around. He was there with the Rocks Pirates, and then after that, he built his own crew up, became one of the 4 emperors. That don't come easy. Even for somebody like him. So he's seen and he's fought against people in groups before. Now these people are kind of different. These are 3 conquerors. These are 3 of these 4 people have Dough Fruit Awakenings. One of these people is his own fucking job, right? But he's gonna, his experience is gonna help him fight against these 4. Close skills, I'm giving it to Kaido. Kaido is gonna have to run up on these guys, fucking grab them, slam them, hit them with his, club. That's gonna be happening a lot. Range skills, I give it to the group though. The group has decent range skills to, combat shit. Fight against Kaido. This is 4 people. 4 people who ain't weak. They ain't like Kaido kind of, tier. They ain't Yonko level. Like, not quite. Admiral level, possibly, and all 4 of them. Range skills go to the group. Recoup goes to the group because Law is a doctor. He can, give them, a little, pick up, a little bit. he helped them out a little bit during this fight, but not for too long. But even though Kaido has nothing to heal him, so he's just trucking through. He's like, I can beat these guys. I'm tough. I'm strong. I handle whatever the fuck these guys have. And that's what he's thinking going into this fight and going through this fight. Hacks go to the group. There's way more abilities that they have at their disposal. Kaido is ridiculous. He has Conqueror's Haki. He has the Delph Fruit Awakening himself, and he has the ability to summon wind, lightning, fire. You know, that group has two Conqueror Haki users that are using Conqueror's coding into their attacks. Kid, he has Conqueror's Haki too. Maybe during this fight that they can, help this man, use his shit better. It's mostly Yamato though with that experience, enlightening them to that, like, you guys got to use more Conqueror's Haki in your attacks, so you're gonna damage him. That kind of thing. Then I said, three of these people have Delph Fruit Awakening. And then the three that have Conqueror's Haki. That helps during the fight against somebody who has Conqueror's Haki and then a busted, mythical zone Delph Fruit. I'm giving it to the 4. Environment goes to Kaido. The Onigashima was created by him. He knows how it's, made. Like, he knows what his island is looking like, the layout and all that, right? That being said, these 4 beat Kaido. I have these 4 beating Kaido. High difficulty, they can win. Even without Luffy, yeah. It's not an easy thing, but they can get the job done. Some of them might be, more worn down than others. Possibly Zoro and Yamato, because they're the ones having to go in and deal more of the damage. But then Law and Kid are like, they're attacking, but then when they come in with their like big attacks, it's like, random. These two, Zoro and Yamato, their Conqueror's, coded attacks, they're coming in more often to deal that, get his health bars down lower. I don't think people would disagree with me on that, especially understanding what people say about Kaido, right? And these 4 ain't scrubs. They ain't scrubs, They ain't like, it ain't like, it ain't like I'm saying Momonosuke and Kinemon and those 4 versus, that 4v1 would be ridiculous, in Kaido's favor. Like, it's like something that you can't even consider, like the group of 4 beating Kaido, right? And then we know that Kaido's same thing that Kaido is, Lancier, 1v1, you gotta bet on Kaido. And that's 1v1. This is a 4v1. I got Kaido losing this shit, because he doesn't have Big Mom backing him either. In the, rooftop battle, you gotta remember, they both combine their attacks together to hit Zoro. That did damage to Zoro, but Zoro still got up and did some shit, and he's just one of these people. Yamato went up to fight against Kaido one-on-one. Kid and Law were fighting against Big Mom. They were able to defeat Big Mom, both of them. Now Big Mom isn't Kaido, but then you have the support of Yamato and Zoro. So, Kaido fans who like to glaze him too much, I said it was high difficulty, but he does fucking lose. The group of Kid, Law, Yamato, and Zoro beat Kaido. High difficulty. And that's my take on that fight. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. And be cool on the corner.